The ship fell from the upper atmosphere like a silver spear, scattering clouds as though they were smoke. Its hull shimmered with shifting light, metal that seemed alive, bending reality as it slowed. Soldiers on the ground stiffened as the vessel descended into the cordoned field outside Fort Atlas, the largest military installation still operated under United Earth Command. The hum of its engines was not loud, but every man present felt the weight of alien presence pressing against the air, heavier than gravity. The Galactic scouts disembarked in formation, their tall, angular frames casting long shadows over the dry grass. Their movements were fluid, efficient, so precise that the Earth officers observing them felt as if they were watching a machine more than a collection of living beings. The lead scout, armored in polished plates that caught the sun, stepped forward. His voice, modulated through a translator device, emerged with the ease of someone addressing inferiors. "Humans," he said, pausing as if the word itself was a novelty, "we are told this planet has survived countless wars. We came expecting a warrior species. Instead, we see a people clinging to relics of the past." A ripple of discomfort moved among the human delegation. No one responded immediately, and that silence only seemed to amuse the scouts further. One of them, slimmer than the rest but with sharper features, pointed toward the racks of rifles arranged for demonstration. His translator emitted a distorted laugh. "Kinetic weapons? You hurl bits of metal as if fire and noise make up for crude engineering. Amusing. Archaic." The insult lingered, stinging not because it was entirely false, but because it was delivered with such open disdain. Colonel Grayson, the officer in charge, kept his posture rigid, his hands locked behind his back. "Our weapons have kept us alive on this planet long before your people ever arrived here. If you doubt their effectiveness, you're welcome to observe." The scouts conferred briefly in their musical, alien tongue. Their laughter, high-pitched, ringing, not entirely natural, echoed across the field, drawing dark glances from the soldiers assembled. They were predators mocking prey, secure in their superiority. Finally, the lead scout gestured lazily toward the human weapons. "Show us, then. Entertain us. Perhaps your sticks will surprise." From the back of the formation, a man shifted his weight slightly, unnoticed by the aliens. Captain Marcus Hale, tall and lean, wore the same fatigues as his peers, but carried himself with a quiet gravity that set him apart. His rifle rested in its case, plain wood and steel without ornament, its lack of sophistication almost insulting when compared to the gleaming alien armor. Hale's eyes, gray and sharp, studied the scouts the way a hunter studies an animal that underestimates him. He spoke little, and when he did, his voice carried no bravado, only calm certainty. The demonstration began. A squad of soldiers stepped forward, rifles raised against steel targets set at the far end of the range. At the order, they fired in unison, brass casings scattering across the ground in a storm of sound and smoke. Bullets pinged against the plates, leaving scratches but no real damage. The scouts clapped slowly, sarcastically, their eyes glowing with amusement. "No penetration," one said. "Your weapons are as primitive as your world." Colonel Grayson's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Hale stepped forward. His movement was deliberate, measured, as though he were entering not a demonstration but a duel. "One more test," he said, his tone flat, almost bored. "With permission." The colonel hesitated, then gave a curt nod. He knew Hale's reputation. Every man in Fort Atlas did. The sniper had served in conflicts most civilians never heard of, operations buried in the classified archives. Where others relied on overwhelming firepower, Hale relied on precision and patience, the art of placing one bullet exactly where it mattered most. The scouts laughed again, but the sound this time carried a faint edge, as though the humans' confidence unsettled them despite themselves. "Very well," their leader said. "Let us see what makes this one different. One shot. One attempt." Hale knelt on the range without flourish, laying out his rifle with the reverence of a craftsman preparing his tools. The weapon was old-fashioned, chambered for rounds long dismissed by militaries chasing lasers and drones. Yet in his hands, it became something more, an extension of his will, the product of countless hours of practice under conditions few would endure. He adjusted the scope, checked the wind by feel, breathed slow and steady. The world seemed to narrow around him until there was nothing but the rifle, the target, and the silence between heartbeats. The aliens grew impatient, their posture mocking. "Is this a ritual?" one asked, amused. "Do you pray before you fire?" Hale did not answer. His finger rested against the trigger, not pressing, not yet. He had once explained to a recruit that a rifle shot was not about speed but about rhythm, the body aligning with the world until the act itself became inevitable. Now he felt that rhythm, the stillness before release. He pulled the trigger. The crack. The crack of the rifle rolled across the range like thunder tearing through a silent sky. The scouts flinched despite themselves, unused to the raw violence of sound produced by such a primitive weapon. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the target, a slab of alien alloy forged to resist energies beyond human comprehension, shuddered as if struck by an invisible hammer. A clean hole appeared at its center, smoke curling faintly from the edges. The silence that followed was heavier than the shot itself. Soldiers stared, their mouths half open, trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The scouts stood frozen, disbelief painted across faces otherwise carved from arrogance. Their instruments lit up, detecting the impossible. The alloy had been punctured by a mass of lead and copper propelled only by chemistry and pressure. Captain Hale remained prone, his cheek still resting against the rifle stock. He blinked once, slow and deliberate, before rising to his feet. He didn't look at the hole in the target, didn't wait for approval, didn't smile. He simply broke the rifle down with the same care he had assembled it, as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. One scout finally spoke, his voice strained through the translator.
"How?"
This cannot. Our analysis rated that alloy invulnerable to impact velocities below orbital bombardment." Hale glanced at him for the first time, his gray eyes calm, unreadable. "Your analysis was wrong." He offered no further explanation, no lecture on ballistics or precision, because he knew they would not understand. To him, it had been a shot like countless others. To them, it was a revelation. Colonel Grayson allowed the silence to linger, the weight of it pressing on both delegations. When he finally spoke, his words were deliberate, controlled. "That was one man, one rifle, one bullet. And yet the target you swore was impervious lies pierced. Perhaps next time you'll hesitate before calling us primitive." The scouts began arguing among themselves, their voices rising, sharp and metallic through their devices. Words like statistical anomaly and impossible variance filled the air, but none dared laugh again. They clustered around the damaged plate, scanning it from every angle, as though searching for a trick. Their pride demanded an explanation, but their instruments offered none. Hale stood apart, his weapon case slung casually over his shoulder. A young private approached him, eyes wide with awe. "Sir, that was incredible. You showed them. You showed all of them." Hale gave a slight shrug. "It was just a shot." His voice carried no boast, no excitement. To him, the praise was irrelevant. A marksman knew the danger of believing his own legend. The private fell silent, chastened, though the awe never left his face. The scouts eventually turned their attention back to the humans, their arrogance chipped but not yet shattered. The leader stepped forward, his glowing eyes dimmer now. "One success proves nothing. Perhaps your bullet struck a flaw in the material. Perhaps chance favored you. A second attempt will reveal the truth." Grayson opened his mouth, but Hale cut him off with quiet certainty.
"No."
"One shot is enough." He walked away without waiting for permission, leaving the scouts to wrestle with their unease. The refusal was not arrogance, it was discipline. A sniper knew when to fire and when to stop. Anything more would have been performance, and Marcus Hale did not perform. The lead scout watched him go, expression unreadable. Beneath the polished plates and the glowing eyes, doubt flickered for the first time. He had seen warriors in countless systems, had crushed rebellions with weapons that split mountains, but none of them had unnerved him the way this quiet human did with a single rifle shot. That night, the base was alive with whispers. Soldiers replayed the moment again and again, each retelling inflating the tension and drama until it sounded like something pulled from legend. They spoke of the hole punched clean through alien metal, of the way the scouts had lost their smug composure, of how Hale had walked away as if he had done nothing at all. In his quarters, Hale sat alone, cleaning his weapon with the same methodical care he always did. Each stroke of the cloth across the barrel was measured, practiced, unhurried. He thought not of glory or victory, but of details. The wind shift he had accounted for, the breathing pattern he had maintained, the exact pressure he had placed on the trigger. Success, he knew, was never magic. It was control. It was discipline. Outside, in a chamber hastily converted into their quarters, the scouts argued deep into the night. One insisted the humans had cheated, that there must have been sabotage. Another demanded the sample be retested. A third, quieter than the rest, muttered that perhaps humans possessed something beyond technology, something intangible, a trait that could not be measured by sensors. The others silenced him quickly, but the thought lingered. By dawn, the scouts' laughter had vanished. They carried themselves more carefully, their gazes sharper, as if expecting more demonstrations of impossible skill. Colonel Grayson saw the change and understood it for what it was, a crack in the armor of their superiority. For the first time, the galaxy had glimpsed that humans could not be dismissed so easily. Hale noticed the shift as well, but paid it no mind. He knew pride was the enemy of precision. He had fired one shot, nothing more. Yet deep down, in the quiet places he did not voice aloud, he sensed something had shifted beyond the range, beyond the base, beyond Earth itself. The scouts would carry their report back across the stars, and the galaxy would hear the story of the rifle that pierced the unbreakable. He tightened the last screw on his rifle, placed it gently in its case, and closed the lid with a soft click. Outside, the sun rose over Fort Atlas, and with it came a silence, not of peace, but of anticipation. Something had begun that could not be undone. The target plate was still displayed in the center of the range the next morning, a silent witness to what had transpired. Its surface gleamed under the pale light, unmarred except for the single, perfect hole drilled straight through the heart of its alloy. Human soldiers passed it with a mixture of pride and disbelief, while the scouts avoided it altogether, as if acknowledging the wound would grant it more power. Yet the evidence lingered, undeniable and unforgotten. Within the command building, Colonel Grayson faced the lead scout across a long steel table. Between them lay the official data, sensor readouts, ballistic reports, and structural analyses, all confirming the same truth. The bullet had penetrated where no known projectile should have. Grayson kept his hands folded, his face impassive, but inwardly he relished the silence stretching from the alien side. They were creatures unused to being challenged, let alone bested, and the weight of their discomfort filled the room. "You came here to measure us," Grayson said evenly. "And now you've seen what one man can do with what you call primitive tools. Dismiss us if you like, but you can't erase that hole." The lead scout's glowing eyes narrowed. His voice, filtered through the translator, was stripped of its former mockery. "One incident proves nothing. An aberration. We will not base galactic assessment on an accident of physics." Grayson leaned forward slightly, the steel table creaking under his weight. "It wasn't an accident. It was discipline, skill, and will. That's what you fail to understand. Technology doesn't define us. Men like Captain Hale do." At the mention of his name, the scouts turned their heads, as if expecting the sniper to appear. Marcus Hale was not in the room. He was outside, standing at the edge of the range, watching the horizon with his rifle case slung across his back. He preferred the silence of the open field to the sterile air of diplomatic chambers. To him, words meant little. The shot had already spoken. Yet even out there, he could feel the weight of the scouts' scrutiny. Their eyes followed him whenever he moved through the base, no longer casual, no longer amused. Where once they had dismissed him as another soldier, they now watched with wary calculation. He knew the look well, It was the look of men who suddenly realized their prey might have teeth. That evening, as dusk bled across the sky, a group of young soldiers gathered around him, unable to contain their curiosity. One of them, barely out of training, blurted the question the others were too cautious to voice. "Sir, how did you do it?" They said the alloy was unbreakable. Was it luck? Hale regarded the boy with the same calm he carried into battle. Luck is what you call the work you didn't see. Wind, angle, breath, patience. That's all. There's no magic. The answer left them disappointed and awed at the same time. They had wanted a secret, a revelation that would elevate the moment into legend. Instead, Hale offered only the truth, mastery born of repetition and discipline. Still, in their eyes, he had become something more than a soldier. He had become a symbol, whether he wanted it or not. Inside the alien quarters, the mood was darker. The scouts argued in their own language, their voices sharp and urgent. One insisted that the demonstration must have been rigged, that human leadership had tampered with the material. Another dismissed the theory. Too many sensors had confirmed the result. A third suggested that humans possessed an innate trait their models had never accounted for, something intangible that gave weight to their actions. The others silenced him, unwilling to entertain the notion, but unease hung thick in the air. The lead scout ended the debate with a single command. "We will report this anomaly. The council must be warned." The word warned carried a gravity that silenced even the most argumentative of his subordinates. They all understood the implication. Humanity was no longer an insignificant species to be catalogued and ignored. Humanity had shown it could wound the untouchable. Back at the command building, Grayson dismissed his officers for the night but paused as Hale entered quietly. The sniper gave a small nod, nothing more. Grayson studied him for a moment, struck again by how unassuming the man seemed. There was no swagger, no thirst for recognition, just calm acceptance of the role he played. The colonel almost envied him. "You realize," Grayson said, his voice low, "that you've changed more than you know. They'll remember you. The galaxy will remember you." Hale set his rifle case down, his expression unreadable. "It was just a shot, sir. Nothing more." Grayson shook his head. "You don't see it, do you? It wasn't just the hole in that plate. It was the hole in their certainty. You've made them doubt, and doubt is dangerous." Hale said nothing, but his silence was not indifference. It was thought, measured, and weighty. He knew the colonel was right. A single shot might echo longer than any war, not because of the sound it made, but because of the silence it left behind. Later that night, when most of the base had gone quiet, Hale returned to the range. The target still stood under the moonlight, the hole at its center black against the silver sheen. He approached it slowly, laying a hand against the cold alloy. His fingertips traced the edges of the wound, as if confirming it was real. The metal had resisted everything the scouts had thrown at it, yet one bullet had passed through as though it had been waiting for him all along. He did not feel pride. He felt responsibility. Whatever came next, the galaxy would not forget that humans had drawn first blood against invincibility. And though Hale had no interest in legend, he understood the burden of becoming one. The night wind carried faint echoes from the alien quarters, metallic voices raised in frustration. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening. They would not sleep easily. Neither would he. When he finally turned away, the hole in the target gleamed under the starlight, not just a wound in metal, but a mark burned into history. The scouts had come to laugh at Earth's rifles. Now, they whispered among themselves, unsettled, calculating, uncertain. And Marcus Hale, walking alone across the darkened field, knew that silence would not last. Something had been set in motion, and the shot that pierced the unbreakable had also pierced the veil of complacency across the stars. The true conflict had only just begun. The scouts' departure did not bring peace. Their silence as they left Earth was not the quiet of respect but of calculation, and everyone at Fort Atlas felt the weight of it. Rumors moved faster than official communiques, carried on intercepted transmissions, and whispered across barracks. Soldiers spoke of fleets repositioning near the outer rim, of council envoys demanding reclassification of humanity, of treaties drafted in rooms no human would ever see. The single bullet fired by Marcus Hale had set in motion a storm larger than any war fought on Earth's soil. Hale himself remained the still point in that storm. Where others speculated, he cleaned his rifle. Where others sought reassurance, he gave none. He was unchanged, and yet all eyes clung to him, as though his silence contained the answer to a question too large to ask. Some treated him like a savior, others like a dangerous anomaly, but he refused both roles. To him, a man was not his legend. A man was what he did when the moment demanded. Colonel Grayson saw the danger in the myth taking root. In the weeks after the scouts left, the colonel found Hale on the range nearly every dawn. The sniper lay prone in the dirt, sighting distant markers, firing single shots with perfect patience. Grayson approached one morning, watching as Hale sent a bullet whispering across the wind to strike dead center. Without looking up, Hale spoke. "You're worried." "Of course I'm worried," Grayson replied. "The council is debating whether to label us dangerous. That word alone can justify preemptive war." Hale ejected the casing, pocketed it with care. "Then they're already afraid." "Fear cuts both ways," Grayson said, folding his arms. "It can keep them cautious, or it can drive them to strike before we're ready." "And you?" He hesitated, studying the man who never raised his voice, never sought command, yet had become the face of Earth's defiance. "You've become the center of it. You're not just Marcus Hale anymore. You're the man who broke the unbreakable. Every eye in the galaxy is on you." Hale rolled onto his back, resting his head against the stock of his rifle. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm. "Then they're wasting their attention. One shot doesn't win a war. But it can start one," Grayson said softly. News reached them days later that confirmed the colonel's fears. A patrol ship belonging to the council had been intercepted near Jupiter's orbit, its commander demanding access to Earth's weapons development. When denied, the ship retreated without incident, but the message was clear. They were watching, probing, waiting. Soldiers grew restless, whispering that an invasion was inevitable. The myth of Hale gave them courage, but also a dangerous faith that one man with a rifle could hold back the stars. Hale ignored the whispers, but he felt their weight all the same. One night, alone in his quarters, he stripped his rifle down piece by piece, laying each component on the desk under the dim light. He studied them as if searching for an answer. Steel, wood, glass, simple parts bound by precision and purpose. He wondered how such simplicity had rattled civilizations that commanded fleets and burned worlds. Perhaps it wasn't the weapon at all. Perhaps it was the man behind it. The scouts returned without warning. Their ship descended once again over Fort Atlas, casting its vast shadow across the range. Soldiers scrambled to positions, weapons primed, but the vessel did not open fire. It landed with deliberate slowness, a predator approaching without pounce. When the ramp lowered, only the lead scout emerged, his polished armor dimmed, his movements less fluid than before. He walked straight toward Hale, who stood waiting at the edge of the formation. "You," the scout said through his translator, the single word carrying the weight of their entire encounter. "The council has heard of you." Systems whisper of the man with the bullet that pierced certainty. "Do you understand what you've done?" Hale's reply was as measured as his aim. "I did my job." The scout's head tilted, as though studying a puzzle piece that refused to fit. "Your kind is unpredictable, dangerous. Some among us argue you must be contained before you spread further. Others believe you could be partners. But all agree on this: you are no longer irrelevant." Grayson stepped forward, but Hale lifted a hand, silencing him. His eyes locked with the scout's, gray meeting glow, steady against alien brilliance. "Irrelevant or not, we don't bow. Remember that when you report back." The scout's armor caught the sunlight as he turned, boarding his ship without another word. The vessel lifted, its engines rumbling low, vanishing into the clouds as silently as it had come. Soldiers erupted in murmurs, questions and speculation tumbling out in waves. But Hale remained still, his rifle slung across his shoulder, his face calm as stone. He had not raised his weapon, yet the confrontation had felt like a shot fired all the same. That night, the base pulsed with restless energy. Some celebrated, others feared what would follow. Grayson sought Hale in his quarters and found him sitting on the bunk, rifle across his lap, cleaning it with the same patience as ever. "They'll be back," the colonel said. Hale nodded once. "Then so will I." Grayson hesitated, then asked the question that had lingered unspoken for weeks. "Do you want this? To be the symbol they've made of you?" Hale paused, setting down the cleaning rod. He looked up, eyes steady, voice quiet. "One has nothing to do with it. The galaxy doesn't care what I want. It cares what I do when the moment comes." The colonel exhaled, recognizing the truth in those words. Hale was not chasing legend, not burdened by myth. He was a soldier, nothing more, nothing less, and that was why the galaxy feared him. Outside, the night sky stretched vast and unbroken, stars burning like watchful eyes. Somewhere among them, council fleets debated their course, deciding whether Earth would be ally or enemy. Yet at Fort Atlas, one man sat alone, rifle in hand, waiting. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's rifles, mocked them as relics. But laughter had turned to silence, and silence to fear. When the next shot came, and Hale knew it would not echo across a training range. It would resound across worlds. He closed the rifle case with a quiet snap, the sound sharp in the stillness. The weapon rested at his side, ready. He lay back on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, eyes open, unblinking, patient as always. When the time arrived, when the galaxy tested Earth again, Marcus Hale would not hesitate. He would do what he had always done. He would pull the trigger.